welcome to Human Ascension with Ellie. Many of us have heard the stories of how someone's guardian angel has saved them from an unforeseen potential disaster or has helped them to make a decision in life that was life-changing in the end. It actually is quite encouraging to believe that guardian angels exist and that they're watching over us and the people that we love. I wanted to delve into the question of guardian angels today, who they are, what brings them to want to support and help us, what their role is, what they look like, and how they may visit us in our lives and help us as we follow our life path. The only thing is, when it comes to guardian angels, most of the information about them comes from religious text or is adopted from religious beliefs. So does that mean that we have to actually believe in religion in order to believe in guardian angels? I thought that I'd go on a bit of a search to see what I can find on the topic of guardian angels and compare the vast array of religious writings, whether it be through scripture or even just from the variety of different faith-based authors around the world. And I thought that I would compare it to some of the other theories that exist about otherworldly entities or energies that might be helping to protect us, or which may simply be our life journey companions in some way. Either way, you know me, I wanted to know. And when I want to know something, I go find it if I can. So firstly, I thought I'd take a look at what are considered to be the most mainstream theories on guardian angels. And what I mean by that is the religious or faith-based theories. Okay. For this, I looked at a variety of different religious writings online. I also looked at a number of different books and did a bit of research on a number of different or a variety of different faith-based authors. Keep in mind about the faith-based concepts of guardian angels, because I'm not necessarily describing what I personally believe in this respect, although there might be some overlap as well. Some of the information provided is intended to shine guardian angels in a certain kind of light, which is conducive to the faith itself. Okay. And so for this reason, I'm sharing the information, but I'm not sure that I'm entirely a believer myself. Not yet, anyway. However, it doesn't mean that you can't be a believer. After all, we all believe what we believe. It doesn't have to be the same or different to anyone else. So let's begin by visualizing in our mind's eye how a guardian angel may appear according to a variety of religious scripture and statements by faith-based authors. I mean, some people claim to already know what their guardian angel looks like. But many people, perhaps most of us in the world, have never actually seen our guardian angel. And we have no idea, even if we're looking at that guardian angel at a time that they might be assisting us. But for those of us who have seen our guardian angel or guardian angels in plural, you may find that they have appeared even to be as ordinary people, or they might appear as a kind of voice that's unseen but can be heard, or perhaps even visually seen in the form of an angelic presence, perhaps translucent, or angelic in appearance, or holographic. Maybe they're standing there right in front of us. Maybe they're hovering above us. It always appears a little different for every different person. Mostly, though, people don't actually notice the times when their guardian angel or guardian angels are likely to be protecting them from everyday hazards that they may not even realize they've been facing. So many things take place during the course of our travel towards destiny that perhaps are there to try and prevent us from having an accident, but we just don't notice those things. We don't stop to study each occurrence because it's not always easy to see the connections sometimes. So, for example, let's just say you decide on a dark night not to turn left and instead to turn right, to take a certain route home because you're walking home after a night out or something. You may not realize the reason why you've done that, but the reason might be that your guardian angel directed you or hinted to you or provided some kind of incentive or instinct for you to turn away from potential danger and towards safety. And you would never make that connection because Why would you? It's just a part of ordinary life to make a decision of some kind, isn't it? And yes, there are times when a little voice inside your head, maybe not even a voice, it may come as the vaguest of feelings, perhaps. It might be there to tell you not to turn left, that you should go right instead. You may not even know why. And even though the feeling nags at you for a moment, you might shake it off and go left anyway because it's faster. And you figure, you know what, it'll be okay. But then it's not okay. You fall, or you lose your wallet, or a bird poops on your head, or you end up in a logjam of some kind, and the direction you thought was going to be faster actually makes you later than you would have been if you turn right. Is that your guardian angel trying to guide you, but you've ignored their message and later found out that you made a mistake? Just because you don't normally see a guardian angel around you, or even a number of guardian angels around you, it doesn't mean that they're not there. We do have, after all, because we're simply human, we have a very limited series of senses with which to perceive the world. So we often don't normally see things like angels or fairies that may actually be around us. But there are many who believe that angels, guardian angels, and fairies, and other things like that are as real as you and me are at this very moment. But they're formed from a different kind of energy, an energy that's usually beyond our perception. We can only see a small part of the light spectrum, after all. For example, we can't see ultraviolet light, for example, but we still know that it does exist. And that's the same when it comes to things like guardian angels, perhaps. So let's take a look at the idea of a guardian angel presenting themselves in human form. That kind of guardian angel may seem to just be an ordinary person, for example. We may get their assistance during a time of need and never even realize that they are, in fact, an angel. I'm going to quote from the Bible, okay, because, I do that, because as we know, it has a lot to say about lots of things. In Hebrew 13:2, it says, "Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it." I think that's actually quite a beautiful way of thinking about the reasons why we should be nice to each other. You never know when the person in front of you is actually there for the purposes of protecting you through your life journey. There have been circumstances, however, when it appears when what appears to be an ordinary person has come to the rescue of someone who was in danger at the time, and that person, having survived a potential catastrophe, has gone on to live their life suspecting that the mysterious stranger who helped them may not have actually been human, perhaps. And it has been stated before that angels who may appear in an ethereal form or an angelic form, a form that's indeed not as we would usually expect a human to be, could actually transform themselves into human form for the purposes of being there in the right place at the right time in order to help us to get beyond a moment that could change everything in our lives. And let's not get too narcissistic about this either. Let's for a moment consider that we're not the center of the universe. I know it's shocking, very radical idea, but let's just say that we're just people who must live and follow a certain path, because the path, say, for example, that you are completing will link to another person's journey, who will link to another person's journey. And ultimately, we're all just links in the chain of something bigger that has to take place. So there's always the chance that the reason why we're being guided in a certain direction by a guardian angel type of presence is to allow for the grand plan of the universe to unfold as it was intended to. This reminds me of a story I've already told my subscribers on the Ellie Dreams and Under channel some time ago on YouTube. It was something that happened to my grandmother, actually, when she was a young mother. She was saved by a mysterious stranger, and when she later returned to say thank you, well, let's just say that she was kind of left wondering whether this person had ever really existed. And she's not the only person in my family who's experienced being saved by a mysterious stranger in peculiar, impossible ways. It makes me wonder if my family is just an example of all family, but my family or my family line might actually be a necessary part of the grand universal plan. We've all defied death in some way that was quite peculiar when you add it all up together. I might even devote one day an episode just to my family's history of avoiding death. One day, we'll put them all together and see what we come up with, because we've got examples from all over the world at different times in different generations. And when you look at it all together, it's actually kind of interesting. And this may not just be the case for my family, this might be the case for all families, but does it mean that there's a reason? So, people who believe in guardian angels say that they're always nearby and they're always there ready to help us, whether they decide to show up in the visible form or to work invisibly behind the scenes of our lives. So, let's talk a little bit about what the role of the guardian angel may actually be. This list of potential roles and responsibilities come from a long and varied history across the world of people who claim to have had encounters or who have studied the topic of guardian angels. Firstly, guardian angels are often considered to be lifetime guardians who watch over people during their entire lives on Earth. They may be assigned to a specific family or just to a specific person or to a group of people. And a wide variety of different religions actually claim that this is one of the roles of guardian angels. For example, in ancient Greek philosophy, it's claimed that guardian spirits were assigned to each person for life, for their entire earthly life. In Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there are passages in religious doctrine that demonstrate a belief in guardian angels having been appointed by God and given roles to provide lifetime care for humans. The name guardian angel immediately implies that the role of the guardian angel is to guard a person against danger. The ancient Mesopotamians believed that guardian spirits existed for the purpose of protecting them from evil. And Matthew 18:10 of the Bible states that children each have guardian angels protecting them. And during the 17th century, a famous writer by the name of Amos Kamensky wrote that God assigns guardian angels to help protect children against all dangers and snares, pits, ambushes, traps, and temptations. So the Book of Enoch is a series of ancient religious writings that were found in a cave by some young shepherds in the mid-20th century, in around the West Bank region of the Middle East. They form part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and although they were not agreed by the Catholic Church as being suitable for inclusion into the Bible, they do form part of the Ethiopian Christian Bible. Well, in the Book of Enoch, it also makes reference to guardian angels and states that adults and children alike receive the full benefit of guardian angels for their protection. In Book 1 of Enoch, 105, it declares that God will set a guard of holy angels over all the righteous. But also in the Quran, it says in Al-Rod 13:11, for each person there is angels in front of him and behind him who guard him by Allah's command. Also in the religious context, and I guess this means when it comes to the righteous, a person's guardian angel is also believed to be continuously praying and providing persistent requests and positive affirmations to God on their behalf. They are, in this context, an otherworldly entity who is continuously intervening in the life of the person that they're guarding, for the purposes of trying to enhance their life and help it to become more positive, and to help that person move forward in good ways along their life journey. So, according to the Catholic Church, from infancy to death, human life is surrounded by their watchful care and intercession. And Buddhists believe that angelic beings called bodhisattvas, who watch over people, listen to people's prayers and join in with the good thoughts that people pray. And of course, guardian angels may also be guarding your path in life. Well, in the Old Testament, Exodus 32 to 34, God tells Moses as he's preparing to leave the Hebrew people for a new place, my angel will go before you. And also in Psalm 91:11, it says, for he, God, will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. But when it comes to guidance, there can potentially be good or bad guidance provided by angels according to faith-based teachings. There are a number of different literary works throughout history that have sometimes portrayed the idea of faithful angels and fallen angels, each giving different types of value of advice. For example, there's a famous 16th century play called The Tragic History of Dr. Faustus that features a good angel and a bad angel who are offering conflicting advice to the doctor. And one lesser known role that guardian angels perform, according to some, is that they record our every deed. So there are people of many faiths that believe that guardian angels record everything that people think and say and do in their lifetimes. And then they pass the information along to higher ranking angels so that those angels can include this information of our past and present deeds into the universe's official record. Islam and Sikhism both say this and state that every person has two guardian angels for his or her earthly lifetime, and that those angels record both good and bad deeds that the person performs throughout their life. Well, that raises a question with me. If a guardian angel is able to record all of my deeds, does that include being able to read my thoughts? For this information, I thought I would delve into a book called Angels, which was written by Billy Graham back in around 2000. For those who aren't familiar with Billy Graham, and I'm sure there aren't very many of you, he is an author, a preacher, and an evangelical who's delivered the gospel message to more people face to face than anyone else in history. Now, that's written in his bio. He's also ministered in one of those mega churches in every continent of the world. Millions have read his long list of faith-based books. So what Billy Graham says in his book, Angels, is that although angels have a vast amount of knowledge, they're not all-knowing. They do not know everything. They're not like God in that respect. And Billy Graham also points out in his book that Jesus Christ spoke of the limited knowledge of the angels when he discussed the time set in history for his return to earth in Mark 13:32 of the Bible. And it says, but about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in earth, nor the Son, but only the Father. However, Billy Graham says that angels do know more than human beings do. And according to Psalm 8:5, God did make humans a little lower than the angels, just slightly, So I guess it goes God at the top, and then the angels, and then us humans. In another book called Encyclopedia of Angels, written by Rosemary Gully, it says that creatures In another faith-based book called Encyclopedia of Angels, written by Rosemary Gully, it says, no creatures beneath that of angels were created without their knowledge. The angels have direct knowledge, though inferior to God's, about creation subsequent to themselves, such as humans. Some say that guardian angels speak to us in a way that helps us to see our lives through the eyes of God. Okay, so I thought I would take a look at a specific religion to see how they deal with the concept of guardian angels. And I wanted to get away from the Abrahamic religions for a while. And because it's one of the oldest religions, I thought that I would go in with Hinduism. So in Hinduism, guardian angels help people to achieve a closer union with everyone and everything in the universe. Hindus believe in a different concept of guardian angels than what might be found in other major religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Hindu style of guardian angel is more like a type of god because it combines two different spiritual forces. The first spiritual force is called the Devas. The Devas are deities who help guide people, pray for people, and promote the spiritual growth of people and other living beings like animals and plants. Devas give the living things that they watch over spiritual energy, which inspires and motivates the person, the animal, or the plant being cared for to better understand the universe and become one with it. Devas literally means shining ones, and they're thought to inhabit a higher astral plane. Now, I find this to be interesting because shining ones would indicate that they have a shine, a bit like some of those angelic beings that have been witnessed by people, even today. The second kind of spiritual force is the Atman. The Atman is a divine spark inside each person that acts as a higher self to direct people towards higher levels of consciousness. The Atman, which represents the part of each person that lives forever, despite changing through different reincarnations, urges people to move towards enlightenment and understand the universe and become one with it in unity. So there's two different elements belonging to the Hindu concept of guardian angels. First, you have the physical presence of the shining one. Now, think about all of the different visions that people have had over the years of angelic beings that are shimmering in nature. It does make you wonder. And then we also have this concept of guardian angels not only taking care of humans. We must always remember to let go of our narcissistic ways and realize that it's not just about us. They're guarding humans, but also animals and plants. I think that's very interesting. And they're helping the plants to understand their place in the universe and their impact on the universe. I think Hinduism is a very interesting concept because of things like that. But there are also other types of guardian angels in the Hindu religion. There are major gods, minor gods, the planets, human gurus, and ancestors, and each of these, or all of these, may play a protective role, like that of a guardian angel during times of crisis or stress, during illness, in the face of physical danger, or when someone is going through challenges in school, their professional life, or in their relationship. And human gurus are Hindu spiritual teachers who've developed divinity inside them. These kinds of gurus are also viewed as soothsayers or guardians of almost an angelic type who can act as a spiritual guide to others in their lifetime. Hindus even believe that certain planets can be called upon to protect believers. A significant planet that appears in your birth or natal chart in astrology can be used or can be called upon as a guardian angel at certain times of the year when it appears in your chart in a certain way that's unique to your birth. So returning back to Christianity for a moment, there is a faith-based belief that guardian angels primarily communicate with believers or the faithful or the righteous during their sleep time because of a number of different reasons, one of them being that we spend a third of our life asleep. We're open and receptive during that time, and so why not take advantage of it? But also another kind of cute reason is that angels do not have a physical body, and so they never get tired, which makes them available 24/7. Every time we go to sleep, it's believed that the guardian angels that have been assigned to watch over us are ready to help us during our slumber. So in one instance, there's a belief that angels can help us to sleep when we need to. So, for example, if we're a person who deals with insomnia, the guardian angel might be able to help to give our body the sleep that it needs. They do this by providing us with the guidance of whatever it is that we might need to know in order to relax or to assist us with the process of letting go of negative emotions that may have been preventing us from getting that sleep. There's a faith-based writer by the name of Diana Cooper who wrote a book called Angel Inspiration. In her book, Diana writes that angels are particularly helpful when you're asleep at night. We all hold anger, fear, guilt, jealousy, hurt, or other damaging emotions. We can ask our guardian angel to help us to release emotional blockages during sleep before they build up into physical problems. And then there are also those who believe that while we sleep, guardian angels may also be around for the purposes of helping us to leave our bodies during sleep and escort us to various different places in the spiritual realm. The purpose of this is to help us to learn something new through the practice of astral travel, sometimes also known as soul traveling. There are those who believe that guardian angels escort us to otherworldly places where we attend a kind of a school and learn deep spiritual lessons during our sleep. But we can also, over time, be involved in teaching others during these experiences of astral travel or soul traveling as well. In faith-based wisdoms, it's also stated that angels could be jotting down the records of everything we've done during our waking hours and helping to prepare our experiences for the following day as well. There are lots of different job titles given to guardian angels in faith-based teachings. Author Rudolf Steiner, in his book called Guardian Angels Connecting with Our Spiritual Guides and Helpers, writes that when children go to sleep, their angel goes with them. But when a person who's reached a certain maturity goes to sleep, it actually depends on his or her attitude, on whether or not they have an inner relationship with their angels during sleep. And if this relationship is not there, and if the person only really has faith in material things and their thoughts are entirely about the material world, then the angel is very unlikely to come to them in their sleep. In the faith-based belief system, nightmares are also considered to be linked to guardian angels. Nightmares bring issues to your attention that you need to notice and deal with in your waking life. In fact, nightmares can be useful to help you to process your thoughts and feelings that you may not be comfortable processing during the day. There may be things you don't want to face up to during the day. According to some, God sends warning messages through nightmares, and sometimes God sends a guardian angel or guardian angels who stay close during sleep time to deliver those warnings. So I found a list of nightmares that were considered to be a resource for faith-based believers in guardian angels. And it notes what the potential meanings might be according to people of faith who have shared their wisdom around the world. These are potentially ways in which your guardian angel could be sharing important messages with you that you need to sort out or understand in the context of your life. So the first one is a nightmare where you may have a sense of being lost. The message here, according to faith-based writings, is that maybe you have a life of confusion or conflict that you need to address. If someone is chasing you or attacking you in your nightmare, the message might be that you have too much stress in your life. If you have a dream of being trapped, this could be a message about feeling powerless in the situation that you're dealing with when you're awake. And if you're dying or if someone else is dying in your dream, this could be a message about the loss of someone in your life or the need to start afresh with something new. To kind of let go of the past and move on to something new in your life. Also, if you have a nightmare that involves suffering an illness or an injury, this might be about suffering some kind of loss or feeling vulnerable in your waking life. If you dream about falling, for example, the message might be that you feel that you have no control in the situation. If you're nightmare relates to performing poorly on something like a test or a presentation or something. It could be a message about anxiety regarding a situation that you're experiencing in your waking life, or feeling inadequate in some place, or insecure about yourself in some way. If your nightmare or dream involves showing up in a public place, naked or dressed inappropriately, this could be a message about feeling vulnerable or exposed or embarrassed or ashamed about something in your life. And in your dream, if you're having trouble with your car or some other vehicle, it could be a message about frustration, about challenges moving forward in life or reaching your goal. Your life's goal in some way. If you're dreaming about going through a natural disaster, then the message there could be regarding a problem that's raging out of control in your life. And if you dream of experiencing damage to your home or other personal property, it could be a message about a valuable part of your waking life and the fact that it's at risk. And if you dream about missing a plane or a train or a bus or some other kind of transport, this could be a message about missing out on something that you'd like to do or losing touch with someone in a relationship. Now, that's very simplified, but that's what I was able to find in my research. Now, remember, these are the definitions of guardian messages or guardian angel messages according to faith-based writings or faith-based advice. As someone who often does deal with dreams, I wouldn't agree with all of these definitions of the dreams. Some of them, I think there's parallels to the things that I believe, and probably also parallels to some of the psychological explanations for dreams as well. For example, when it comes to dreams about falling, often a falling dream is about having a sense of a lack of control. But I don't quite understand how that relates to guardian angel, protective kind of messages. I mean, what is the purpose of dreaming about having a lack of control if you're experiencing a lack of control in your waking life? I think it would be more reassuring to dream in a way that provides a message about how you can gain control of your life back, don't you think? So overall, I do agree that many of the definitions of what certain dreams are might be accurate, an accurate reflection of what the experiences that you're having in your life. But I'm not convinced that these kinds of dreams are linked to guardian angels. Because if they were, they wouldn't just be reminding you of what you already know. Because the guardian angel is there, they're supposed to be adding something new. But there are also times when your nightmares might actually be a communication from your guardian angel, according to those who believe, with a message from a higher realm or from God about reaching out to help someone else as well. For example, you may have a bad dream about a friend or a family member who's going through a crisis like a divorce or an illness or unemployment or something like that. That nightmare might be a message designed to urge you to pray for them or to offer whatever practical help you can according to these faith-based wisdoms. Or you may experience a nightmare about an unjust situation that upsets you, such as poverty or crime. And those nightmare messages may motivate you to start volunteering time or contributing money to support the cause or working for justice on the issue that you've been dreaming about, something like that. This area does make me think about a time I think I've mentioned before when I had a dream that a work colleague of mine was in a fight. And then the next morning I discovered that he couldn't come to work because he and his friends had been jumped by a gang and had basically been mugged while they were out on a night out in the city. I'm not sure that I'm 100% in tune with this religious or faith-based concept of guardian angels and nightmares, but I do wonder about that dream and why I had it, because it was a very brief dream, but it was also very specific. And if that's the case, then what was the purpose of me having that dream? I really don't think that there was anything that I could have done to stop the situation because I was 50 miles away at the time, and there's nothing I could have done to have helped this fellow from what was a surprise kind of attack by a gang of young people. And nobody would have taken me seriously if I'd called up and said, I think someone's going to get mugged 50 miles away from here in the middle of the night. I mean, so what was the purpose of the dream if it was a guardian angel? give me that message. And that's why I think I'm a little bit skeptical. Anyway, let's move on to some of the other kinds of beliefs when it comes to guardian angels. Tanya Carroll Richardson is a self-improvement spiritual author, a professional intuitive, and a regular contributor to a website called Mind Body Green. Tanya has written a number of books about angels and their relationship to humanity. In a recent blog post, Tanya writes the following about her own personal experiences with guardian angels, and I include this because it's kind of similar to my own in a way. So Tanya describes it like this. Growing up, I was raised by a single mother who was an atheist, or more accurately, an agnostic, which is the dictionary definition of a person who claims neither belief nor disbelief in God. She once told me, I think there's something out there that's bigger than us, but I've got no idea what it is. And she wasn't too concerned about that either. The apple could not have fallen further from the tree. In my case, I was a very spiritual young person. In middle school, I set up my own altar in the corner of my bedroom, complete with the cross where I could kneel and pray. In high school, I read about Wicca and created another altar where I kept my tarot cards and incense. It was a solitary spiritual seeker's journey. Not being part of a formal spiritual community was a real source of angst for me growing up. I was jealous of friends who were Catholic and got to enjoy all the ritual of that religion, or friends whose parents were Unitarian and got to study everyone from Thor to Ganesha. But now I feel it might have been part of Spirit's plan for me that my mum was a blank slate in that department. I grew up with zero conceived notions about God, and so I made it up. And I picked things up as I went along. I embraced Kabbalah, Buddhism, paganism, and finally, angels. I knew nothing or very little about the Bible when I saw an angel in my room. And that was 10 years ago. And most people, including me at the time, always had associated angels with Christianity and the Bible. So what Tanya is saying here is that she woke up to discover an angel presence in her bedroom at a time when she really had no beliefs about anything in particular. But what I find interesting is that at the time, Tanya was looking for something to believe in. And she had already stated that she was jealous of her Catholic friends that she was growing up with who were involved in these religions, or even people who had other types of belief in their upbringing that would give them an iconic element to believe in. I don't know who on earth would be jealous of Catholic guilt, but anyway, she was. So my question is, did Tanya see an angel in her bedroom because she was visited by an angel? Or did she see it because she wanted to see it? She wanted something to believe in. Tanya's story does sound a little familiar to me, as I mentioned, though. I know there is something else out there, but I don't know what it is, and I don't profess to have any expertise on any particular system of faith or belief. And I've always believed that this makes me an ideal person to research this kind of stuff for exactly that reason. I don't know whether guardian angels are strictly from the religious and faith-based realm or have been adopted from there, or whether they come from a concept that's entirely different. And that's one of the reasons why I found someone like Tanya Carroll Richardson to be interesting. She has a similar type of background to myself, where she starts from nothing and ends up building a belief system that includes intuitive insight and contact with some otherworldly beings of some kind. All right, you know what? Let's get completely out of the spiritual realm and look at the concept of guardian angels from a psychological perspective, just for something different. There is a theory called the third man factor that relates to a phenomenon where individuals in life-threatening situations report feeling the presence of an unseen companion who provides comfort and support. This phenomenon has been documented by numerous explorers, adventurers, and survivors of extreme conditions. In one example, Sir Ernest Shackleton, who undertook an Antarctic expedition between 1914 and 1917, experienced extreme hardship along with the team that he was traveling with. Shackleton diarized his expedition, and in his diary, he described feeling the presence of an unseen companion during the grueling journey across South Georgia. And he stated, and this is a quote, "It seems to me often that we are not three but four people." So Ernest Shackleton was sensing the presence of a fourth entity in his team of travelers, in which he wondered whether or not that fourth entity might be some kind of guardian angel who was acting as a companion to the rest of them. In another example, Joe Simpson, in a book that he wrote called Touching the Void, recounts near-death experience that he had in the Peruvian Andes after suffering a severe leg injury and falling into a crater of some kind and being stuck there. Joe describes hearing a voice that encouraged him and eventually guided him back to base camp. Now, there are psychological explanations for this, and psychologists suggest that this is the third man factor, and that it's a coping mechanism employed by the brain during extreme stress or danger. There are three main points to the third man factor, and they are the following. Okay. Firstly, there is survival mechanism. The brain creates the sensation of an external presence to provide comfort and guidance, which helps the individual to navigate through their crisis. This can be seen as a form of dissociation, where the mind separates itself from the immediate trauma to maintain focus and calm. The second aspect is that the phenomenon is related to the brain's division into two different hemispheres, the left and the right hemisphere. And because of that, the mind communicates in a way that creates an illusion of an external presence in the moment. So basically a kind of a hallucination where your brain imagines that there is an extra presence out there, when in fact it's just the way that your brain has communicated between the left and the right hemisphere. And the presence of a guardian angel in the third element can provide psychological comfort, reducing feelings of isolation and fear. So it makes you feel as though you have company, when in fact you might be alone. It's just there. It's like a way to nurture yourself. That sense of having company can be crucial for survival, as it helps to maintain mental stability and resilience. Now, I've had an experience. And my experience when it comes to anything like this, like Sir Ernest Shackleton or Joe Simpson, is not quite as profound as their experiences. And it may or may not have been quite as life-threatening, although I think it was pretty life-threatening. However, I have had an experience that would fall very closely into the category that's used to describe this third man factor. And so I'll share it with you. I think it was around 1995, and I was living in Los Angeles. I started to experience visual sensitivity, and occasionally I would get some peculiar headaches. The headaches were really intense, but they would only last for a few seconds, and then they would go away. But they were very sharp pains and very much unlike anything that I'd experienced before. Now, this continued for a few weeks, but because I was busy, I was actually a student at the time with a very busy social life, and I didn't really think too much about it until it became debilitating. And I think because I was young, like many young people, I kind of believed that whatever it was self-inflicted, probably from having too many nights out drinking or something like that. And that a good sleep and a couple of nights of staying home and being well behaved would solve the problem. You know, young people tend to think they're invincible. But then suddenly my health took a very sudden nosedive. I started to develop what seemed to be flu symptoms. And so I stayed home from university. I lay on the sofa watching TV and just waited to get better. But then my symptoms started to actually get worse instead of better, to the point where I no longer was cooking or even getting up to go to the refrigerator. I had a friend who was a far better friend than I think I ever gave him credit for at the time. He was one of those very flamboyant, sometimes annoying, always in your face characters that are very common in Los Angeles. He was very unconventional and a complete embarrassment to have in any kind of company. polite society. And he was always a very flawed person. But I think, you know what? I think he was a better friend than I thought, because I think he also saved my life. Because every day he would come with a big bottle of Lucozade and he'd leave it with me after making sure that I'm okay, insisting that I drink the bottle of Lucozade, if nothing else, to help to keep me hydrated while I was recovering from this mystery illness. I didn't know this fellow very well, believe it or not, because he was only a casual friend at the time. But he did probably keep me alive. And so I'm a little bit ashamed to say that I don't even remember his name, because really we were just casual friends. He just happened to be that person who never went away. He just kept coming back, regardless of how little I knew him. And in a way, I think that's what saved my life. Anyway, one day my symptoms became so bad that I started to experience really severe neck pain. So I decided to go and see a chiropractor, which I think officially makes me a complete idiot, because as it turns out, I didn't have the flu and there was nothing wrong with my neck. I just happened to have bacterial meningitis, which, as we know, is a life-threatening illness. I was having so many vision problems that I actually didn't trust myself to drive. So I called a taxi and the taxi drove me to the chiropractor's office. By the time I got to the chiropractor, I couldn't see enough to be able to walk up the stairs. So the taxi driver walked me up the stairs. I really should have taken heed of the clues here, but I've already explained to you that I was an idiot, so I didn't. I walked into the chiropractor's office. I couldn't see virtually at all. I was actually seeing double, triple, quadruple. I had weird quadruple vision. But I sat down, and when the chiropractor came out of the waiting area, came out into the waiting area where there were a number of people sitting waiting to be treated, she took one look at me, bumped me up to the top of the queue, called me into her treatment room. She sat me down, spoke to me for about 10 seconds, and then she did the most amazing thing. I didn't actually know this lady. I had never been to her practice before. I just happened to find her number in the phone book, or probably 411, I'd say. But she closed her practice, bundled me into her car, and drove me herself to St. John's Hospital, emergency entrance. When I arrived at the hospital, my temperature was taken. I think it was around 103 at the time, and I was blind. I was put into triage in a private room because I was obviously highly contagious, or they suspected that I was. And the hospital staff prepared to give me a spinal tap in order to ascertain whether or not I had what they suspected I had, which of course was bacterial meningitis. I remember being in this room waiting for the emergency treatment and diagnosis when I heard a voice speaking to me in my ear. I'm pretty sure it was my right ear. However, the voice sounded as though it was coming from everywhere. I couldn't see anything. It's not that I was seeing black. It's just that I was seeing double, triple, more. And I had trouble focusing on anything in particular. And that's because the infection had reached the top of my spine and entered into my head, perhaps even pressing on my brain, I guess. I'm not really sure, but I was quite at an advanced stage, having been ill for weeks. And, I had been going about town doing what I normally do without even realizing how sick I was. I still cringe every time I think about how many people I might have infected in my time at work, at school, on the street, in the supermarket, who knows? But that's because I had overestimated my own resilience and not realized how sick I could potentially get. I think this is something that commonly happens with younger people. We tend to think sometimes we either overreact to a small thing or we think we're completely invincible. So this voice spoke to me, and it sounded like a very calm, very normal male voice. And it said quite simply, Elena, which is my full Christian name, Elena, I'm here to tell you that it's time for you to die. Now, as you can imagine, I wasn't sure that I had heard the voice correctly because I was in the triage of a hospital, and I was expecting that if I did hear a voice in my state of visual impairment, that voice would be coming from a doctor or a nurse. So I was pretty certain that I had misheard whatever I had heard. And I remember saying out loud, what? What? like I was testing what it was that I had just heard because I just couldn't believe it. And in response, the voice simply repeated what it had already said word for word. And it said, Elena, I'm here to tell you that it's time for you to die. Well, as you can imagine, all hell broke loose. I started yelling, and I was yelling so loudly that I attracted everyone's attention in triage. I wasn't just yelling, I was swearing, I was threatening, you name it. I remember yelling at the top of my lungs something along the lines of, I'm not going anywhere, get the hell away from me, I'm not going anywhere, that kind of thing. But with probably some four-letter words. The next thing I remember was that I did see a man's face. It was blurry, but I did see it. I saw a man hovering over me, and his face was shiny, as though he was sweating lightly. And he said to me, what's going on? What's happening? And I responded to him in quite an erratic, kind of upset, anxious way, that somebody had been in my room and had told me that I'm going to die, but I'm not going anywhere. I refused to go. In response, the man said, there's nobody here apart from you and me. And then he proceeded to kind of talk to me and calm me down. The next morning, I had been transferred to my room, and I met the doctors who would be treating me over the next period of time that I was in hospital. I was in hospital for around 10 days, but it took me around 6 months to recover fully from this illness. The first doctor came in to see me, and he introduced himself. I don't remember his name. He said, and I quote, I understand that you were hallucinating last night. And I can't remember whether we had a discussion about it or not, because he was there to treat me and to introduce himself as being one of my doctors. But he was applying this third man factor to my experience of this voice that came to tell me that it was time for me to die. He believed that I had been hallucinating. Now, at the time, I was pretty certain that there was a presence in my room with me, and I had heard the voice, I'd heard the tone of the voice, and I still remember that tone of the voice and the fact that it was very calm, and it was a male voice telling me that it was time for me to die, and that the purpose of that voice and the presence was it just felt like it was everywhere, and it was meant to be everywhere. Now, if that was a hallucination, then that the doctor believed it to be, then, so be it. But then later that same morning, another doctor came in to see me. And I remember this doctor's name very well. He said his name was Dr. Steve. And the reason why I remember him is because he came in and he said, hello, I'm Dr. Steve. I understand that you spoke to God last night. Now, Dr. Steve, he introduced himself to be an internist. So Dr. Steve, the internist from St. John's Hospital in 1995. If you happen to be listening, this is all about you. I hear you spoke to God last night, and that's the difference. To one of the doctors, my experience was of the third man factor. I was in a crisis of some kind, and I hallucinated or imagined that there was a presence with me who was there to help me to travel through the experience. But to the other doctor, the experiences was that of an angelic spiritual type. And then in that instance, I was in the company of an otherworldly entity in that moment who was there to help guide me to my next experience. I don't know which of these two things happened. I don't know which of my two doctors was right. Did I hallucinate? Did I speak to God, or was it a guardian angel helping me to transition from one plane to another? The only thing I know for certain is that I put up a really big fight, Aussie style. And that fight must have been evidence of my continued life force, because I never ended up dying. I'm still here. So was that my survival mechanism kicking in? Was it the power that I gave to myself through the construct of my brain and my thinking processes that gave me a kind of an imaginary adversary that I could fight against and become victorious against? Because I have to admit that I didn't find that message, that it was time for me to die, to be very comforting or supportive. And so my immediate response, not as you'd expect a guardian angel to be anyway, and so my immediate response was to act as though that voice was an adversary that I had to defeat. And so I did. I swore and I yelled and I screamed until that man with the shiny, sweaty face came into my room. And I think it was sweaty because he must have been in the middle of dealing with another emergency somewhere in triage when he responded to my yelling and screaming nearby. There was nothing in the material plane inside my room that could have explained that voice. And it's now been 30 years since this episode took place, and I'm still convinced that there was something there in my room and that I was not alone. Was I hallucinating, or did I really directly speak to another worldly entity, whether it was a guardian angel or whether it was God? There is another explanation of guardian angels that I think is most closely aligned to the beliefs that I have as a person. And this relates to the metaphysical theories about how guardian angels extend beyond the physical realm, but are not confined to any specific tradition or religion. In metaphysical theory, guardian angels are universal entities that transcend religious boundaries. They're believed to be spiritual beings assigned to guide and protect individuals throughout their lives, regardless of their religious beliefs. This perspective suggests that guardian angels are connected with the well-being and spiritual growth of all humans. They're non-denominational and can assist anyone who seeks their help. They're seen as benevolent beings who provide guidance, protection, and support to individuals on their life journey. And guardians, in the metaphysical sense, are inclusive beings that make them accessible to people of all faiths and all backgrounds. Guardian angels, under these theories, are also spiritual guides who help people to navigate their human experiences. They're believed to offer insight, inspiration, and encouragement, helping people make decisions that align with their higher purpose. This guidance can come in various forms, including intuitive feelings, dreams, or synchronicities of some kind. Some metaphysical perspectives view guardian angels as being of pure energy or light, and they're thought to vibrate at a higher frequency than humans, which allows them to exist in different dimensions or planes of existence. The idea about this aligns with the belief that guardian angels can influence our thinking and our emotions, providing comfort and reassurance during challenging times. And this metaphysical explanation of guardian angels could also be part of the explanation of various sightings that people have. Everyone from Chris Bledsoe with his Lady in White to visions of Our Lady of Fatima to the wide variety of other worldly experiences that people have had all over the world since the beginning of time. And these visions or experiences always seem to come to people who are in crisis, where they're begging for help, genuinely, deeply felt begging for help. Are these visions the same as the voices in our head? Are they just a different manifestation of the same guardian angel presence that give us the conscience to want to be good people, or that hint at us that we should turn right instead of left, but also may appear as voices in a dream that tell us that we need to go and get a health check, or that someone might need to hear from us, or that a certain decision or choice should be made? I don't know whether the faith-based explanations of guardian angels is accurate or not, even though it's the most prevalent to be found. I don't know whether the psychological explanations are accurate or not. But I do believe in guardian angels, and I've had more than one experience in my life where I feel as though I've had a direct communication with my guardian angel or angels. And so I am certainly a believer, albeit in non-committal ways, because I don't know how I believe, but I just know that I believe. And I'm really grateful that there's someone out there who genuinely has my back. My name is Ellie, and you can find me at Ellie Dreams Down Under on YouTube, and also on TikTok, Threads, or Facebook, All you have to do is Google Ellie Dreams Down Under and you'll find me everywhere. Thank you to everyone who's listening on one of KGRA's broadcasting platforms. If you'd like to become a member of the KGRA digital viewing family, don't forget to enter promo code Ellie to get 30% off your subscription. That's it for today. It's been a pleasure. Until next time.